And welcome back. It's Talking Bollocks Part 2. Yes, it's a festive special for you festive people. Basically, it's carrying on from Part 1. I mean, if you haven't already listened to Part 1, get yourself over there, listen to Part 1. What are you doing? If you want to listen to Part 2 first, that's entirely up to you. To be honest, they are interchangeable. The fact that one's called Part 1 and one's called Part 2 is pretty much immaterial, really. But one thing for sure is that you are listening to Talking Bollocks, and my name is Howard Smith. I am the lead singer of Acid Rain. You can reach us on acidrain.co.uk. Not that anybody uses websites anymore, do they? Or you can also follow me doing comedy as the character Keith Platt, keithplatt.co.uk. Nah, definitely not. Or you can find us on all social media. And you can also find Talking Bollocks on social media. You can find Talking Bollocks on Twitter. You can find Talking Bollocks on fucking everything. And please do go to Talking Bollocks YouTube channel. Which is Talking Bollocks with a Z, and you can catch up with Bollocks Radio for December. There's a new radio show that I'm doing coming out every month on YouTube, but it's also available for everybody to listen to on patreon.com/Howard H. Smith. Click on posts, click down the page, and there you will see it, and you can listen to it there as well. So, and while you're at Patreon, why don't you sign up as a subscriber? What the hell? You could have had this ages ago. You could have had this, a good long time ago. You get your own Bollocast. You would have been able to submit questions to all of these people that I've interviewed, and it's all sorts of fun. Oh, it's lovely. It really is. It's Christmas. Or maybe it's not, depending on when you're listening to this. But, right now, it fucking is. I am Santa Bollocks at the moment, okay? So, look, this is one of the specials. You've heard the first one. This is pretty much same, I wasn't saying, not same thing, but same format. I talk, but not for long, and then we get straight into the interview. So, without further ado, let's crack on. Straight into my first interview with my good friend, Simon Yarwood. He started the Uprising Festival. We played the first ever one, and we played the first Amplified Festival. Anybody spotting a pattern here? He's going to tell you all about it and what's behind the scenes and how much fun it is to organise or not, depending on what happens. So here is Simon and I talking not long ago.
Mr. Smith.
Good morning, Mr. Yarwood.
How are you?
I am very well. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for taking time out on this miserable Saturday morning.
Bleak day.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, shite, isn't it?
Yeah. Hey, this. I am recording, by the way. I always. Yeah. So we've got the low energy two old men moaning about the weather's cracked.
Yeah. The weather's shit.
Yeah, and this podcast is going to be going out as a 2-part special over Christmas. So we're really cheering people up and taking them out of their Christmas funk. Hey, straight in. How are things for Uprising 2019 looking?
Things are looking really well, to be honest. Nothing out there in the public domain at the moment.
Yeah,
but,
don't expect you to.
A bunch of busy bees working behind the scenes.
Well, I think both of us know at least one band who are playing.
I think we possibly do.
Yeah, enough said. Move on.
Yeah. Okay.
So, Simon, tell me, what inspired you to start it in the first place? Because when we got that the offer to play Uprising, Leicester de Montfort Hall, the first year, which was 2016, was it?
It was, yeah.
Yeah, 2016.
Yeah.
We jumped at the chance. Obviously, legendary venue, but I just thought, wow, that's some way to start. You're not starting in some sort of small weekender in a pub. You absolutely went for it. That must have been quite the undertaking.
I guess it just sort of snowballed really from. I basically took on the Leicester franchise for the Metal to the Masses. Obviously we played Bloodstock through Metal to the Masses in 2014, and I've been sort of quite involved with it since we played. And then come 2016, I actually took on Metals to the Masses into Leicester. So myself and my partner Matt, we were just kind of chatting about what to do with the final and what was out there and what we could do that was, a bit of a showcase in terms of Metals to the Masses finals. And the conversation just got bigger and bigger. And Matt had sort of spoken to Simon Football previously. He puts on another festival. He puts on 2 festivals in Leicester that are different genres to metal and the heavy rock end of the spectrum. So it was just quite an organic process, really, where we just ended up with this big monster of a gig, and then we needed some bands.
Yeah. I mean, it was. I mean, I remember speaking to you at the time, and you said Sharon, who is Sharon Richardson, our agent, was a real help in putting it together as well. Well, not putting it together, but helping you kind of talk through the minefield of bands.
She was. Yeah, because I mean, obviously, I've put on quite a few gigs, and I do quite a lot around Leicester in terms of gigs for the underground bands, and obviously with a venue that holds a couple of thousand people, we needed to step up. And approaching a band on my band's level is a chat over the phone or in a pub or a quick message or email, and everything's booked. Then to step up to the next level was a bit out of the comfort zone, and Sharon was very helpful because she taught me how to speak in festival band booking terms, I suppose, which I've took on board. It just makes each year a little bit easier to step up again.
Yeah, and but you've also got so much more to kind of get your head round as well, haven't you? Such as merch and stuff like that, and bands arriving at different times in the day.
Yeah, the logistics of a 1 day in Speech Marks Festival, in terms of that amount of bands, that amount of people, gear. It's not something you can do as a 1 or 2 man crew. There's people whose names I don't even know on the crew. There's that many people involved in it from start to finish, really.
Yeah, and it's I mean, just the actual, I don't know. You've booked the venue. You've got the tickets done. I mean, there must have been times where you were like, "What have I done?"
Every day since the end of 2015, including today.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't think there's a day. I don't think there's a day goes by when you're not doing something around that event. There's always some little, even if it's a tiny thing, that there isn't a day of the year that doesn't go by without a conversation or a little sort of wheel being, another cog being put into place. Even if it's a tiny one, there's just always something happening, and there's always little issues that pop up. So it's a 24-hour day job, really.
Yeah, and
just to keep a few hundred people happy.
Well, and presumably as well, you spend a great deal of time batting away inquiries for people who want to play the festival that you're kind of sorry, the gates are closed, as it were.
Yeah, I'm reasonably lucky there because we don't do the normal, applications are open route, which just opens floodgates to thousands of people running through an application process. So I've kind of always tried to steer away from that anyway.
Yeah, very
that
sensible.
Isn't to say that I don't read and listen to bands that that do send emails in. I will always look at anybody that sends an email in, but we try to make it as much as we can by invitation.
Yeah.
And then obviously bands will always get recommended to me by other promoters and people in the industry. I'm forever sort of looking out at people that are getting a lot of buzz about them. And there's that many bands that are worthy of a slot that you can run a full weekend event purely on invitation. As long as you've got a good grasp of what's happening around the country and beyond. I just think it can be done without the typical apply to play our festival today. emails and social media posts.
Yeah, and also I think, I mean, personally, coming from just thinking about it myself, I have to say I think that's the way I'd want to do it as well, because ultimately what you want is kind of 3 days of bands that you want to see.
I don't think it's even that. I mean, I've booked bands that I can't stand. If I know that they're excellent.
Yeah. Thanks for doing that, by the way, mate.
If a band is excellent, then whether I particularly like what they do is almost irrelevant. I have to not think about how much I like them. I have to think about how good they are.
Right, I'm so tempted to ask who's the band that you've booked.
Yeah, be careful.
Who's the band that you've booked that you've hated the most, apart from Acid Rain?
Apart from Acid Rain.
Yeah.
No, I don't think I've ever booked a band that I hate, but I have definitely booked bands that don't sit with my sort of tastes.
Yeah, but bands that you know or have been told, look, they're going to shift tickets.
Yeah, and I'll listen. I'll think, you know what, they're absolutely brilliant at that, and I'd never buy an album.
Yeah, well,
that doesn't mean that.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. Everyone's got to book Lawnmower Death once.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But
took your time there, didn't you? That's like 5 minutes in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, to be fair, the band I've slagged off most so far is Acid Rain. So
Yeah, that's quite true.
To
be fair, you are the band that said, I feel like I've just done a gig in a hotel foyer.
That second stage felt like a hotel foyer. It really did. It was so weird. It was so weird. And it was
fun though, wasn't it?
Oh man, it was fun. And also I loved the juxtaposition of Hell finishing in the main room with the full on fucking heavy metal stage show under the
pyro and everything.
Yeah, exactly. And then you go into the room next door, and there's me wearing a Leicester City top climbing over the PA, and all of us are just fucking having a laugh and taking it in turns to get amongst the crowd.
Yeah, it kind of set the bar, really, didn't it? I think, year one, if you're going to start something, you've got to do it with a bit of a punch in the face, I think, and I think we managed that. We definitely put the event on the map.
Absolutely, and didn't you? Was that the last show that Hell have played? So to this date.
No, I think they did something in Europe afterwards.
Yeah.
But possibly not.
No, I think you might be right. I think around 2017, because I was trying to get Andy. I was trying to get Andy Sneap to mix The Man Who Became Himself, but I think he had some European dates lined up with Hell then. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure they did something. I've spoken to Kev recently, but yeah, they've been very quiet since.
Yeah,
but Andy's a busy man now, isn't he?
Well, why don't you get his new band on?
Yeah, I'll try that, shall I?
Yeah, come on. He's
I haven't got room for the wardrobe.
I haven't got room for the fucking fans.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
There is that as well.
Yeah. It'd be ridiculous. It'd be absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. Nice to see him doing so well.
Oh, isn't it though? Isn't it? It's just it's a dream. It's a dream come true for him, and I couldn't be happier. I mean, I bumped into him at Bloodstock whilst I was stuck outside trying to get in. Ironically,
I did see you trying to get in. Ironically,
yes, you did. Well, funnily enough, I ended up.
I did, yes.
I ended up stood there for half an hour chatting to Andy because he couldn't get in either.
Right, okay.
Yeah, we were in a slightly different position. I was waiting for Cannibal Corpse's guest list to come through, and he was playing in the headline band that night.
Yeah.
But
and neither of you could get a wristband.
Yeah, basically. But it all worked out in the end anyway. But I remember watching.
As it always does.
Yeah, it did. Did I bump into you when I think I bumped into you not long after spending, a couple of hours or an hour and a half.
I've seen you at accreditation and laughed at you because you couldn't get in as I walked in.
You did, didn't you? You didn't even stop to say hello.
I did, yeah. No, I did. I did say something like, "Have fun," and I hope you can get in.
Yeah.
And I'll possibly see you later. And then I did see you later.
And then Andrew O'Neill walked up, told him the situation. He walked over, got his accreditation. Within about 5 minutes, pointed at it, laughed at me, and then went in. Cy Keeler came out, smiled, and went back in again. It was just like, oh my God, this is ridiculous.
H, if you can't laugh at yourself, it's always better to have other people laugh at it.
Well, exactly, and that's what I'll be hoping tonight at my comedy show, that people will be laughing at me, or rather Keith, as I should say.
Yeah.
But so anyway, look, it's slightly strayed off the subject. Have you found out? I mean, obviously you're approaching the third uprising. Have you what have you learned in that time? Four. Fucking hell, Jesus.
Yeah.
What am I like? Yeah, you're right. Of course. What have you learnt in that time? I mean, pitfalls. Have you put processes in place that you didn't have before? What's?
Yeah. We've brought more people into the family. So where the first couple of years, I kind of felt like we were trying to do everything, as a two-man team. With a little bit of help. I mean, obviously, we've always had Andy from Very Metal Art's been there from day one, doing all the art for us, and also a lot of help and advice and batting ideas around has always been there. But bringing in like a dedicated sort of press team and people that specifically look after crew and stages, it's just growing that team so I can basically look after 7 or 8 people rather than 70 or 80 people makes the days easier.
Yeah.
And I think really that's probably the main thing, is it just to be able to go to one person and make sure that his or her piece of it is working properly.
Yeah.
Rather than look at all those pieces that are in that one little department.
So you've got...
I have found that I've kind of enjoyed each day, each year, better than the year before.
Yeah.
Because I've felt that there's sort of less on my shoulders to make sure that is working.
So you've got people reporting to you, letting you know what's going on in each area, rather than to have a run around and find out yourself.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean the main stage is we've got to the point where it runs itself, and then we've tried to move that over onto the second stage as well. So we have a second stage manager. So he sort of pops in the production office with the updates, and he actually ran around last year jumping up and down, waving his hands around because he finished 44 seconds before time. So that's kind of his his elation point was that it was 45 seconds under finishing time at the end of the day, which is, I suppose, is quite a feat if that's your job to achieve that. Then he's done that perfectly, hasn't it?
Well, especially an event like that. You've got to be you're obviously on top of your shit if you're able to finish at, because you always hear tales of people being there long into the night, still dotting the I's and crossing the T's and what they wish they'd done or were trying to do a few hours previously.
Yeah.
But
we're putting we're going to put a little. Sorry. Interjected there, Karen.
Yeah, I mean it's the also the kind of like the backstage area and everything else. I think people don't realise it's just as important. It's just as important, if not more important, than front of house. I mean, front of house you got to keep the punters happy and keep them entertained, and back of house you've got to keep everybody happy as well.
Well, yeah, because if the band and the band's crew aren't happy, it just comes straight across to the customers.
Yeah.
The first thing that the person in the crowd sees is the position that the band are in terms of how they feel. The band's buzzing, then it just comes straight out into the crowd. And if the band's had a bad time before they walk on stage, you just see it instantly. I've been on stage and I've been in the crowd, and I know how the mood that the band are in affects the crowd out front.
I was just going to say, actually, do you think it's helped, given the fact that you're a musician yourself, that's that's helped to a certain extent?
Absolutely, 100%. From the sort of the smaller gigs that I put on at the Firebug, all the way up to Uprising, I just try to do everything so that a band member, whoever they may be, is treated how I would like to be treated. So if I turn up to play, a festival type event, and I've got a 30-minute dressing room window and a bottle of water to share between the bands, then I'm just going to think, oh, this ain't very good, is it?
Yeah.
I don't expect a lavish meal, but I expect a degree of hospitality. So we just try to put that over. And even the bands, lower down the bill, they might be sharing dressing rooms, but there's sandwiches and drinks and beer, and we look after them because that's the level I'm at. So I can gauge what they should be getting in terms of hospitality. So we then just try and step it up a little bit so that they get a bit more than they would at the next event they play. So that we're always the favourite.
Yeah.
Our headliners this year, we sent them off into town, and we fed them off-site so they could sit in peace and quiet in a nice environment with home-cooked food, and then brought them back up to the venue to play, because they didn't particularly perhaps want to have to sit in a dressing room all day long.
That's a nice touch, and I think I think you're right, and that certainly sits with me. That it's the little things, isn't it? It's the little things.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah.
That make all the difference.
It doesn't take much, does it? It's just a little bit of thought.
It doesn't take much. You're right, and like I say, the little things have a big impact. And it's little things like that where people go, when you are like, traveling back to the hotel that night, or you're on the road all the way back, to your headquarters or whatever. It is the little things like that stick with you. Yeah,
of course it is.
And when people say like,
and so that maybe when we want to invite somebody back, be it Acid Rain or whoever, I would like to think that they'd jump at coming back to play that event again, because that they're going to remember that. They're not going to remember it as a person in the crowd watching their favourite bands. They're going to remember it as somebody putting on a show, and how they were looked after, and how well they enjoyed their set, and the crew that they had to work with is what's going to bring them back.
Yeah, absolutely, and we had a and also you make an important distinction there as well, because there will be on the journey back there will be a discussion that involves the crew as well. And they'll be chipping in with, either fucking hell, I never want to play there again, or I tell you, I tell you what was really smooth.
Stage manager was a dick.
Yeah, and that goes a long way.
Yeah, doesn't it?
But no, I remember our crew saying to us back in 2016. I remember our crew saying to us that they had their shit together. We had somewhere to park. We were told when we'd need to move it. When we moved it, there was house crew there ready to help, and it was smooth as. And I have to say, when you're driving towards a festival and it's its first year, you do kind of think, well, we're there may be times today where we're just...
Let's be honest, H, nowadays you wonder whether the doors are going to open or not half the time.
Yeah. Well, you are thinking there are going to be times today where we're just going to have to kind of hang in there and bear with them. It's their first, but there was nothing like that. It was smooth as.
No. It made year two. I think I had more pressure year two than year one, because year one I didn't really know what was going to happen. We did what we could. We booked the bands and we planned it out, and then we jumped in there, and it ran minute perfect, and there was no hiccups and no issues. So then year two come round, and it was a case of this really has to work, because nothing went wrong last year. So year two was quite daunting.
Yeah,
and then year two went really smoothly. So last year was just a walk in the park.
Brilliant.
Apart from possibly losing a massive headline the day before we announced all the bands, but hey ho.
Oh, fucking hell. That's that's a bit of a kick in the balls.
Yeah, we lost. We lost Decapitated on the Thursday as the poster was going out on the Friday, and I had 5,000 flyers and things that I had to sort of set fire to.
Oh, no. No.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in a situation like that, what happens?
In a situation like that, you don't go on social media and cry to the world. You just knuckle down and you change what you can in the time that you've got, and you find another headliner. Luckily we had a bona fide, so like Decapitated to bona fide, a Swedish hard rock band. They'd actually had a tour date cancelled, their last tour date. So I spoke to those, and they sort of jumped in last minute to fill the slot. But what I have found is that you can't. Social media now is so viral and so instant that you can't sort of bare your soul on social media because something's gone wrong. And it wasn't an issue with the band or ourselves. It was just one of those things where something happened and it just wasn't going to happen. So you just have to always show to the public that there's nothing's wrong, even if in the background you're running around like a headless chicken trying to fix something.
Yeah.
Because the public perception is really important. Not that things are always going wrong, but that's probably our worst issue that we've had to deal with, and publicly nobody knew.
And it comes.
We just dealt with it.
It comes back to one of my favourite phrases, which is "Don't do your dirty washing in public."
That's right. Yeah, I think Sarge was up at like 3 o'clock in the morning doing a new poster because we were announcing bands at 9.
But
and the poster had the wrong bands on.
But again, you don't post that on social media because, and let's be honest, some people do, and it's like, well, what do you want? Do you want a fucking medal? Comes with the territory. Move on.
Yeah, it's just life, isn't it?
Yeah.
Jobs get cancelled, and things get changed. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
I'm sure the biggest festivals in the world have had headliners and huge bands that were booked that became unbooked, and nobody will ever know because they just crack on and do the job.
Well,
It's no different. Someone couldn't fix your boiler, is it? And then ringing up saying that they can't make it, and somebody else has to come and fix it. It's just how it is.
Yeah, good on you, man. I mean, well, look, I'll tell you off air. A festival that and a festival organizer that who had a similar situation a couple of years ago, and lost the headliner just before about to announce because one of the band had forgotten about a family holiday. and unless that tells you who it was, then you will be very amused by me telling you all about it when we finish this interview. And
I think I've had similar.
It might possibly as well. Oh Jesus! I hope it wasn't you. I hope my memory hasn't turned to shit and it was actually your festival. I'm pretty sure it wasn't. But I can't say who. But Sharon told me the story. I was just like, "Oh, you are joking." She's like, "Nah, couldn't believe it." But it's
life, though, isn't it? Life's pretty fluid. Everything changes all the time. It's just how you deal with it, isn't it?
Well, it is, and you bring up an interesting aspect of a festival, which is the social media around it. And I mean, I know, there's a reason why on our 2017 tour T-shirt the fifth date was "Your House, You Moaning Twat." You don't have to contend with that because you're always in the same city, but by the same token you get the them again, or why don't you book, or people tagging bands and all of that shit.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, do you personally run the social media?
Yeah,
And is that fun?
yeah, it's great fun.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it is because you try to police, I suppose, a happy, positive environment, but you've also got to allow people to say what they feel.
yeah,
And I might jump in if I think something's going, a bit off the line. But in general, I just tend to, we've got an Uprising forum, and obviously there's the Uprising page and stuff. And I do let people do and say as they wish, but, unless it becomes offensive or anything that I feel isn't helping the cause. I'm all for healthy debate and people to be constantly throwing bands at me, because to be honest, there are times when I've looked at those bands and gone, why have I never heard of this band? Why is this band new to me? They're amazing. So yeah, I do try and let it just be itself, but there's forever an eye on it.
yeah, yeah.
And one thing we would never do, myself or the other admins, we never berate any other events or try and make out that we're the place you should be. I mean, the weekend that Uprising's been on, over the last 3 years, it's a bank holiday weekend. There's all sorts of things on. There's Bearded Theories on the same weekend. Just up the road with 10 or 15,000 people there. However, there's events all over the place, and people, to my mind, all we've ever done is gone, this is what we're doing, we'd love you to come along. Not this is what we're doing, it's the best thing, you need to be here. It's you put something on and you hope people come and enjoy what you've done. And if they don't, then that's absolutely fine.
Well, ultimately, people are going to, it's your bill that is going to draw people to the event, isn't it? So,
yeah, of course,
so
and you can't guilt people into attending something that you put on because, this has cost me X amount of thousands of pounds, therefore you must come and attend. That's just not how you do things. And there's a lot of that around, I think, where people are almost guilting the public into buying tickets and attending. And I just don't, it doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah, yeah. And I think you're right there as well. I think some people fall into the trap of...
I'm always right.
we might have a problem there, because so am I.
Okay. Okay. We must agree on everything then.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
No, no, but you're right when you say like you say, some people sort of guilting and saying, that oh, if you don't come to this event, you're really going to miss out, and all the rest of it.
Yeah, it's not going to happen again because it's I put my house on the line, and if you don't come, then I'm going to be bankrupt, and it won't happen, and we do it for you. It's, just shut up. Just put your bill together. Put your tickets on sale.
You've really hit a sweet spot with me there, because I think there's two festivals that I can think of which have gone down the woe is me route. And I'm afraid I just think, well, it's tough shit. It's because it's not a charity event. It's not it's not a community event. It's none of that. It is called a business proposition. You put an event, a festival together on a business plan. And if you are now putting all over social media that your business plan fucked up, well, the key part of that is it's nobody, it's not
exactly,
it's not the audience's
it's on your
fault.
own head.
Yeah. It's not the audience's fault for not turning up. Oh,
hang on. My stupid wife has just spoken to Alexa, I think.
Oh, really?
Or somebody has. Yeah. So where were we?
Yeah. No, I was just saying, when you go on social media and complain that people haven't turned up or no one's supporting the festival, it's like, well, your business plan turned out not to be any good, and the key part of that is your.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I mean, we've always been in a position where if myself and my partner were the only two people watching the bands, it'd still go ahead. And we wouldn't be happy, but it wouldn't mean that it wouldn't happen the next year.
Yeah.
You just look at what you did wrong. And I don't know, I'd never go out and buy an advance ticket to an event that somebody was saying might not happen because they need to sell more tickets. That doesn't really instill any confidence anyway, does it?
Yeah, and also I think if your event is struggling and looking like it's not going to happen, then what you've established there is that there isn't a market for your event in that area. So you either need to change area or look at the event. You need to change something, but the onus is on you, not on every fucker else.
Yeah, it's not the public's responsibility, is it?
Well, no, it isn't, and it's. I mean, I had a right old chat with Andy Pilkington when I was when I had a day off from the studio because he's over there that way now, and we were in Wales. And
his house is lovely, isn't it? I popped in the other day actually, and had a coffee with him.
Yeah, it's not as nice now. I've been there.
Oh, well, okay. Well, I went the right time.
Yeah. No, it is. It is. It's lovely, and I mean, my drive there, coming from the Welsh end, my sat nav took me this really fucking weird way to his house. I mean, like down single track roads that had more grass growing out the middle of it than it did any kind of white paint. And
I think we may have driven the same roads.
Really, you took that really fucking mental route. And the weird thing is, when I went back to the same location, sat nav took me on all main roads. I swear I could hear it laughing about the route it told me to take there. It was fucking ridiculous. But when we were talking, Metallica tickets had just come out and people were moaning about the price. And Andy made what I think is a really, really valid and great point. And that is that music's a privilege. It's not on your fucking shopping list every week, is it? You know,
no, absolutely not.
And you know, no one owes you. You know, bands don't have to be inclusive so everyone can go. It's a business, and you can either afford it or you can't. And if they've priced you out, then they've priced you out. And unfortunately, that's life. It's the same way that you've been priced out a lot of other things. And just because you've seen them loads of times
like a holiday.
before, yeah, exactly like a fucking holiday. It's a day out, isn't it? And if it's no longer financially viable, then sorry, but that's that.
Then you don't go.
Yeah. But for
harsh realities of life.
Yeah, it is. But for some people, for some reason, I think because there's so much passion and emotion involved in music, it just blurs the lines, and so they find it very difficult to be objective. And I think that's the key.
Passion's good though.
Passion's great.
It probably is. Yeah, that one word is probably the thing that is the difference between music and anything else you'd be spending your spare money on.
Yeah, because you have a connection to it, and because invariably music, it's been part of it's been part of all of our lives from very, very early ages. So occasionally we can just the view gets a bit skewed, really. But so how have you found actually dealing with agents, and certainly are there any? Is there a number of questions for you? Is there any agents that you obviously you don't have to name them, but is there any agents where you think, well, I'm not going to book any of your bands ever again? Or and how helpful, the bigger the band, the more difficult the agent to deal with. What's that been like? Because that was something that you hadn't had to deal with before.
Yeah, I feel that so the bigger agency companies will have 10 agents, let's say, in their team, and I feel that you go in at the bottom. So your first port of call is the agent who's looking after the lower tier of fans on the roster, and then you have to kind of work on that relationship and build that confidence in you as an event, and you as a professional person, and you as someone who is actually going to pay the band. So I see it as a long-term sort of relationship building exercise.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to try and jump in at the man at the top who looks after Metallica, because I know I've got to prove myself, I've got to prove my event, I've got to prove the way we work, by looking at maybe the lower bands on that agency's books, and then, year 2, year 3, year 4, whatever, move up the ranks. You just can't put on an event, where, let's be honest, we can get a couple of thousand people in the building, and just expect that, a band that play O2 Academy main rooms with 2,500 people in there are going to instantly jump on the bill.
Yeah.
Because they're not, and you have to build those relationships, and it takes time. There's a reason why Megadeth are on Instagram wearing Uprising t-shirts, because I would love to think that one day in the future they'll come up and play, and everything takes time.
You just dropped that in there, and I was completely unaware of that. Do tell what happened there.
Well, funnily enough, my friend Phil, who runs Motley Brew, he had a business meeting with Dave Ellison, because he does the coffee, and so that whole thing came about, that they were sat chatting, and obviously Phil was talking about Uprising, because he's been sort of involved with it from day one, and obviously he's at Bloodstock doing the Motley Brew and everywhere else. So we ended up, me and Phil saying, well, it's almost more than a business partnership there with you and Dave. It's more friendly. You'll meet if he's in the country for a coffee and stuff. So, how about you start selling our event? And I don't care if it's 5 years down the line. It's absolutely fine, because I'm always looking to the future.
Yeah.
So, if a relationship needs to be 5 years in the making to the point where somebody sort of trusts you implicitly, then I'll put the time in on that relationship. And I think it's the same, with all the agents as well. When they're looking at the festivals, they don't want to have to turn around to their bands and say, "Oh, sorry, that's been cancelled," or "I'm really sorry, they still haven't paid the deposit," or you just have to prove yourself, really. There's too many people putting on things that they throw the name festival at, and we don't even call Uprising a festival, because I don't think it is. It's Uprising. It's not Uprising Festival. But in terms of dealing with bands and stuff, it's kind of looked upon in that bracket. And there's so many of them fail, and there's so many people that think it's easy, that I think it probably takes longer now to build those relationships than it might have done 20 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right there. With the proliferation of bands over the years, you've also got the proliferation of promoters, and people making those mistakes. And you're right. I mean, I don't know why, but yeah, whether it's the entertainment industry or whatever, but the music business is, if you can be the person that does what they say, it goes a long way, because so many people don't.
Yeah, 100%. Even if what you say isn't what they want to hear.
You can't knock honesty.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's that simple, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the listeners are sick of hearing me say this, but when you're honest, yeah, people can disagree with you. They can really not like what you're saying, but ultimately their takeaway has got to be, well, but at least they were honest.
Yeah, at least it was honest.
Because there's, and especially in the music business, there's just so many people who go around their houses with every excuse they can, rather than actually, divvying up the truth.
Yeah.
But
it's really hard. It's really tough. But when you get that yes come back, it's the best feeling. And when the people arrive at the venue, and just seeing how much fun they're having, for a day or over the weekend or whatever, it kind of, everything else that you've done leading up to that, as tough as it might have been, just disappears.
Yeah.
And all the conversations with all the agents and all the suppliers and everything else that goes into it. That your payback is just a smiley faces, really. It's not even the financial payback. Because, as we all know, everything's done. If we break even, I would imagine most events are of the same nature. Breaking even's your goal nowadays.
Yeah.
And just to be able to do it again the following year.
Yeah.
So that you can't survive on breaking even, but you can survive on loads of people smiling and shaking your hands and thanking you for putting something special on.
But also, if you're taking the longer term plan as well, as you clearly are, like, Megadeth playing 5 years down the road, as long as it keeps breaking even, you can keep doing it each year and creating a brand.
I didn't say they were playing 5 years down the road. I was saying that, theoretically, it'd be nice if, and so, however long it takes to make that happen.
I get that. But, well, funnily enough, my next question was going to be, how far do you look in advance? So, for instance, you've got 2019. You've started on that. When will you start looking at 2020? Will there be, and are you in a position yet where you'll get agents saying, is 2020 happening, and get offered bands or anything along those lines, or are you just focused on the year in hand?
Well, how we've had to work, especially working with the Mumford Hall, is we can't book a date for the following year until the previous year is done.
Right.
So we can't. We've never been able to put in the dates in the diary to even have those discussions. So you can have a general discussion, but without any dates or things in place, it's difficult for that discussion to be anything other than just would you be interested? And obviously, the first thing that comes back if you speak to anybody about would you be interested is when is it?
Yeah.
And if you can't answer that question, then we don't even start the conversation if we can't carry it on. We have got things in place now where that I believe that from the 2019 event onwards that we will start being able to actually book the diary for years before the current one is done and dusted. So we'll have to start looking at the following year or 2 years after next year's event.
Yeah.
So obviously, I think those conversations then will start happening because it does happen. We'll speak to a band, maybe 2017, and they'll be on really sorry, they're not available, but the band would love to do the following year. So it would be nice to go, well, yeah, that's great. Then this is the date. Is that feasible? And we haven't been able to do that because of just the way that the venue works their diary. And with us being a new event, they need to make sure that financially it was working for them as well as us.
Yeah, because that is ultimately that's the two questions, isn't it? It's when is it and how much are you paying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, of course, where as well.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think where.
Oh, mate, you've disappeared. What have you done? You're kind of you're going really faint.
You're still there?
Ah, that's better.
Yeah, okay, it must have been where I was stood.
Ah, right.
The where is important, but I think, after next year, we'll be looking at year 5. And I think Uprising itself, the name, will now start to carry the booking rather than the venue. So, if Bloodstock moved from the field it's into a field 50 miles away, it'd still be Bloodstock.
Yeah.
If Download moved from one airport to another, it would still be Download. And I'd like to think that now that we're looking at year 4, that Uprising has become Uprising, and it's almost getting to a point where it could be held at a venue, and as long as it's still Uprising in terms of how it's ran and the bands and the atmosphere, that the where starts becoming less important.
Yeah, yeah.
As long as the venue obviously is a suitable venue, it's the event hopefully that people are coming to. And I actually did a little bit of fishing with the public a few months ago. What makes Uprising, because everybody seems to have a great time, and I was surprised at how few people actually commented on the venue.
Right.
Because I'd always sold De Montfort Hall as Uprising's the poshest metal event in the UK, and I thought, well, what makes it posh? Is it the venue, or is it the way it's put together and the way that people are treated? And so putting that sort of what makes Uprising, and to get all the answers back, and we're meeting all my Bloodstock friends before Bloodstock, and the lineup's always eclectic and interesting and well thought out, and it's the organisation's great, and I love the real ale. And you think, well, okay, so it's the event itself that people look back on, rather than the grandeur of the venue. So I think the possibilities of moving to bigger, different, weirder, stranger places, and that, as long as the event itself is still the event, the where becomes less important.
So do you think that's the first? Do you think that's the first indicator that you're kind of that the event has the first stage in development, if you like, that it's like, right, okay, well, we started here, and the venue was a big sell, and right, X amount of years in now, and we've gone up a level, we've gone up a notch, because the venue can, the event can carry its weight no matter where it is.
Yeah, I think it will be. I don't think it's ever going to move away from Leicester.
Yeah, I think it's a great.
It's the middle of the country. It's a great city. I love the city. I love the people, and everyone's behind Uprising as an event, and so many things we can do, that don't involve just that one building. There's grounds, there's the university 500 yards down the road. There's all sorts of things, and we're constantly looking at 10 years down the line, and 10 years down the line could be a completely different animal to what we've got now.
Yeah.
God forbid.
Well, no, I mean I mean, do you ever? I'm occasionally I do like to kind of sort of look back to 2015 when the band first came back and go, wow, look how far we've come, and it's important to do.
I've seen you in Nunnington.
Yeah. Oh man. Wow.
Yeah.
Fucking hell. Well, yeah. You're right there. Then you are right there.
I was there.
And I'm really keen to go back to Nunnington at some point as well, possibly on the album tour, because I think it's a really cool part of the country that collects from places that get ignored.
Well, if you do Nunnington and don't play Driving Spirit in Leicester for me, I'm probably never going to speak to you again.
Sorry, what was that?
So don't even think about doing an album tour and it not include Leicestershire.
Well,
time-wise, you're probably going to be in the area anyway, I'd imagine, maybe.
You never know, mate. You never know. And literally, I say that because I have no idea.
Because you don't know.
Yeah. Don't even know when the fucking album's coming out and on what label. But and so the tour is quite far off. But no. The point I was going to make was, look, do you do that? Do you kind of sit down occasionally and go, actually, do you know what? It's worth taking time out and just looking at what we've achieved so far and patting ourselves on the back, and because it's very easy to get caught up on that treadmill of next all the time.
Yeah. I suppose I haven't really thought about it, but yeah. I don't think I'll ever have the same feeling that I've had at the end of the first one. I mean, I actually sat in my hotel room at the end of Uprising 1. I walked down to the hotel, sat in the room on my own. The wife had gone home. And I actually, shed a tear of joy because of, how amazing everything went and how happy everybody was. Year 2 was more a case of I sat in a hotel room on my own and then sighed a massive sigh of relief that it didn't all fuck up.
Yeah.
So I do take myself back to year one, because I don't think I'll ever get that feeling again.
Yeah.
Because that was completely alien to me, that what we'd done. So every year after that is more a case of, thank God that didn't die on its arse, or thank God everything went okay, or thank God that tour bus turned up on time. So I do, I suppose, every year go back to how I felt at the end of the first one.
Yeah.
Because that's how I should feel at the end of every one. But I think you can only feel it once.
I think you're right. You lost your virginity, and you can only do that once.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's pretty much it, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, that's a lovely place to leave it. Please do hang on, because I've got some stuff to talk to you about that I can't talk about on the podcast, and also I've got some friends. I've got some Patreon questions as well from Patreon subscribers for you. So, but for now, Simon, thank you so much. Thanks for taking the time out.
Cheers, Alex. Pleasure.
And there you go. That was my chat with Simon. And one thing that one sort of factor that is increasingly crossing my mind while doing all these interviews is just the undertaking. Just the huge. There's the financial undertaking for a start. Will we cover ourselves? Will we make money? Will we lose money? But then there's all of the logistics and everything else. Everything that has to be considered when putting on a festival, and then the venue as well, as you heard from Simon there as well. You've got to get the first one out of the way before you can book it for the next year, and is someone going to beat you to it, etc., etc. I mean, it is just, people who do these things and start these festivals. With all of the, I've just got a huge amount of respect and admiration for all of these people. And proper festivals as well, not an all-dayer in a pub, proper festivals. It's such a massive undertaking, it really is. You wouldn't catch me doing it, that's for sure. Okay, so it's now straight over to friend of the show, artist for Uprising, artist for Bloodstock. By that I mean he does the art for both, and also booker of the second stage at Amplified, the Very Metal stage, as it is, Very Metal Art stage, because this is the head of Very Metal Art himself, or as you better know him, and I better know him, Andy Pilkington. Yes, it's Andy's on again for another chat. I know you all enjoy it when Andy and I get together, as do we both as well. So isn't this just one big circle jerk, eh? Without further ado, here is mine and Andy's conversation not long ago. So, hello, Andy.
Hello.
Hello. So, we have already done the Patreon questions, which is great. So we're already warmed up.
If only the general public could hear what we've been talking about, H. They'd be in awe, wouldn't they?
Well, they knew. Well, it's quite easy. All they need to do is sign up at patreon.com/Howard H. Smith.
I'll set him up. You hit him out, mate.
Absolutely, nice one, mate. I think of you as being involved in two festivals, but in completely different capacities. So it might be an idea to kind of talk about the two festivals, because obviously you are involved with Amplified, because you have the second stage is the Very Metal Art stage.
Yes. So in terms of Amplified, I book all the bands for that stage, and sort of help with Gary booking and making suggestions for the other stages as well, and to do the design, a bit of PR and general sort of collaboration behind the scenes. So much more involved in that one than anything else. That's kind of the one where I've got the most involvement.
Well, we've had Gary on, and funnily enough, I've also had Simon Yarwood on, and you've done his visuals as well.
Yeah.
So you're the one who tie everything together. But also, I was actually I wanted to start with your involvement as it is, how it's grown over the years with Bloodstock.
Yeah, well, my involvement's actually fairly recent.
Right.
I sort of, in the early days, I was definitely, I've done a lot of Monsters of Rock, and then I was someone who went to Download a lot when it first started, and it was still sort of more of a manageable size, then stopped. was about 2008 or something like that was my last one. But then I started going to festivals just to do work and probably travel a bit more during the festival season, sort of get abroad, and then had kids and stuff. So we kind of just took a step back from all that. And then I kind of, through my music work, design work, got more involved with Bloodstock, and went for the first time only 4 years ago. And ever since then, it's been a bit of a whirlwind, really, because I kind of went as a fan, knew all the organisers, knew a lot of the people behind the scenes, did a little bit of video work for them, but then was invited to pitch to become, a little bit more than that, and I've become a lot more involved in all the design and doing the t-shirt work and stuff like that, which is an amazing privilege for me, to see something I admire and love so much, and to have my work sitting alongside the likes of Paul Gregory, and seeing it on thousands of people's backs and in the form of t-shirts and on posters and on the big screen. So I'm much more of a pure designer when it comes to Bloodstock, but absolutely, feel part of the family as everybody who works for Bloodstock does. It's a job for passion, really.
But also that's an interesting interesting perspective as well from a design point of view. How different is it dealing with a festival? So, for instance, you've got the festival shirt, you've got lineups, and you're halfway through a design, and you've been told basically leave room for X amount of logos, or all of a sudden this band's out, and how does that kind of govern how you start out working on it?
Yeah, it absolutely does. I think it's something that comes with experience more than anything. You work on something, then you experience the fact that you're asked to change it all the time, and bands drop out, bands change things. Some bands are picky about their logos, some bands insist theirs is the biggest. So you constantly having to redo these jobs all the time, whether it's the t-shirts, the posters, the videos. And I think once you've done that a few times, you just learn to anticipate it and you design accordingly. So with something like Bloodstock, they're a very important client, so I will allocate a lot more time, sort of contingency time, to them than I will other jobs. So I'll always anticipate there being, various changes, various different approaches to things. So everything is done with a mind that I need to be flexible, basically. So that that there's going to be an announcement every few months. Things might change. So your creative execution needs to be flexible. My time needs to be flexible, and I've just got to be available, basically. So I make sure that I'm always on the end of the phone for them. I'm always replying to their emails first, and if something urgent comes up, then I will deprioritize another job in order to get their stuff done, because obviously a lot more rides on it, and it works really well. I think over the few years I've been working with them, they've come to trust me to think I can offer them a very fast response, which is what they need and what they like. So it's a good working relationship. But yeah, there's a lot of flexibility required.
Yeah, I mean, and also, I mean, I would have thought it's a kind of it's constantly moving and kind of updating, isn't it? I mean, literally, sort of right, take that logo out and put that one in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and as with any event, this is not relating to any specifics, because I wouldn't, but but lineups change, whether it's a small event or a big one. You get bands who are booked and cancelled, bands who various things happen to them that a lot of the time before the public are even aware. So you could create, for example, a batch of 20 different pieces of art all ready to go. They've been done for 3 weeks before an announcement. Things might change, a band needs to come off, and that's all 20 pieces of work have got to be changed. Then the knock-on effect of that is they've got to go back out to all the PR and media agencies who've got them ready to go and queued up. All these automated systems that people have in place to make sure things don't go out too early, don't go out too late. So being the sort of first point of everything happening as a designer, it's really important that I'm as quick as possible, because I need to give all those other people, all those other links in the chain, the opportunity to do their job too. So you've got to be very fast, really. And luckily that's one thing I can do, so I can work quickly. But I think if you're not, then the domino effect of your tardiness can actually cause a lot of damage to an event and an announcement. So it's pretty exciting stuff. And if you get it right, it feels quite cool when something changes and you manage to seamlessly sort of get everything sorted before it goes out.
Well, exactly, and you're right. You do have to be able to be flexible and turn everything round quickly. I'm interested in the actual kind of the minutiae here. Will you actually get right? This band's logo needs to be X size. This needs to be X size, and all these bands on this level of the bill need to be exactly the same size logo. And I'm just wondering about how in detail that shit needs to be.
I think all of that that needs to be factored in, but it's not communicated to me because I mean, posters aren't difficult. When you're a professional designer, posters are quite basic. The fact that I'm into metal means I understand the context of what I'm doing as well, which helps. So if I'm given a list of 10 bands, all I need to know is who's higher on the billing, and I will automatically be able to put everything pretty much in the right size scale hierarchy. And the chances are that if it's a really big band, that'll get sent off to the agent, who will come back and say, no, we need ours to be 10% bigger than that, because that's what big agents do to earn their money. Yeah. And then that might come back. Or it might just be a case of, I think we need to make this band smaller, just tweak things, but never anything overly prescriptive, just because I kind of already understand that to a certain level, this is how it needs to look. So I think that's the benefit for me working for them, is that they already know that I can do the basics in terms of all their execution, and they'll just have to tweak it at the end. But yeah, I would imagine if someone was coming in fresh without the knowledge, then yeah, they would probably have to be very prescriptive over the size and the hierarchy of everything, because that does exist on every poster. If you've got, getting down, like you say, down to the minutiae, if you've got a logo which is very long and thin up against a sort of a fat squat logo, but they're both at a similar level, it's quite difficult to understand which one's got to be bigger, because it's not about the overall space it takes up, it's just about how it looks. It's a purely visual, subjective thing to make sure that the hierarchy seems equal if the bands are on an equal billing, even if, there's a 5-word logo which is ridiculously long versus a 3-letter logo which is short and round. You have to just understand how to make those feel like, they're fair. They're fairly weighted, really.
Yeah, no, and I completely get that as well. That, because the other, I mean, you saying what it's like, you understand metal, so you know what it's like, but you've also managed bands, so you know that there's going to be certain, well, their fucking logo's much bigger than ours.
Well, it's true. But I started off doing metal posters for free for people when I was managing Reign of Fury, just because I hated, well, I'm a control freak, there's no doubt about that, but I hated our logo being on a shit poster. So I would volunteer to do the posters for free just so I could get that control and make it all look good. And I did that quite a lot. It's probably how my business started, basically, because people would think I was a generous soul doing free work for them, which I suppose there was an element of. But mostly it was just I didn't like what it looked like before, so it benefited all of us. But one thing I would always do is I would always put the bright yellow or the bright green version of our logo on a poster and the white version of everyone else's. So to the untrained eye, all the sizes were right and the balance are right, but if our band were near the bottom, we still stood out. I'd put our logo in the middle, always in the middle, even if there were sort of 4 bands on the same level. Ours would be somewhere in the middle where I could carefully find some kind of standout for us, just subconsciously. So with that element of control, I was able to give us a little bit more than other bands without really being unfair. It's kind of almost designer's privilege rather than unfair weighting. But yeah, I mean, and I guess that's what every band wants. That's what every band does. They just don't always find themselves in the position where they get to control that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, great. Handy to have a manager / designer. That's what you're saying.
Well, the other sneaky thing to do is create a poster whose core colour happens to be the same colour as the logo. So no matter what logos are on there, if there's 10 different colours, only the logos that are the same colour as the background are the ones that feel like they really belong to the festival. That was always another sneaky one I do. So I did that 3 or 4 times. It looked really good. Gives you kind of ownership over it.
Right, definitely going to have you design some posters. Definitely.
Well, if anyone could be bothered now to test it out and they go back through and see all the posters I've done, if anyone thinks on Facebook or something, they would see that. They would see that that's actually completely true. I used to do that all the time.
Well, I was looking forward to playing Bloodstock again at some point. I'm looking forward to it even more, seeing what you do with our logo. Yeah. Of
course, when it comes to Bloodstock, I would never entertain such a thing.
Yeah. It's got to be bigger than the headliners. It's got to be the whole poster. Just like
Andy. For some reason, they've got Acid Rain above Metallica.
Yeah. They've got why, Andy? Yeah. Why on the poster is there a big AR etched in the background? Oh no reason. Yeah, no reason. Brilliant. Well, that's really cool, and thank you for taking us through the design aspects of it all. But as you were saying, you're even more involved with Amplified. In fact, you did for the very first year it was on, which I do believe was 2017. You booked us to headline your second stage, which ended up getting washed out, and we played in the bar instead.
Well, that was almost a legendary moment, really. I think it's the best unfortunate events that could have happened. The fact that
do you know what
Amplified's been known for its personality as a result, and obviously the way you guys handled it so professionally, or should I say professionally unprofessionally, so intentionally casually. That was an amazing thing to do.
Can I just say, you said professionally, unprofessionally. Some people have accused me of being unprofessional by climbing behind the bar and pulling pints for the band whilst we were playing. I, however, think that as double professional. Not only was I singing in a band, I was also working behind the bar. So, I mean...
And you didn't die, because knowing the structure of the bar you were stood on and the fear that was in the hearts of those who also knew what we knew, the fact that you didn't die was a definite bonus.
Yeah, well, now you tell me. No one's ever mentioned that they were a bit worried.
At the time, they were punters to keep happy. But the fact that you did that has set a precedent, because that bar stage now has become Gary's sort of personality for his festival. The fact that we now build stages that come out, or a bar that comes out from the stage, which is reinforced and it's explicitly for those bands to come out and explore, is all down to that. And it's now one of the unique things about Amplified, that it's got this stage that's built around this up close and personal thing where you can literally be at your hero's feet while they spill beer on you.
Well, I'll tell you what I told him. Blue plaque. Yeah, I'll have a blue plaque, thank you very much.
Well, given it's in a field, can we just not carve it into a cow pat or something?
Right, just
during off season, there you are.
Whatever,
Big H.
Whatever it is. I mean, what can I say? Improvisation is the I don't know. What is it? Oh, something. What's the mother of invention? I'm trying to think of the.
That's the one.
Necessity. Necessity is the mother of invention, and it was just a case of I couldn't spend the entire time performing with the band in the allotted area because there was no stage, and when if I'm on the floor, ain't no one seeing me. So I needed to remain visual, and I couldn't spend my whole time on the drum riser. So fuck it, let's go and run up and down over the bar. But anyway, enough about our appearance. You've obviously you've completed the lineup, haven't you, for your for this year?
Yeah, the only ones left. We're doing a little bit of a battle of the bands element to fill the last spaces, which is kind of an interesting thing, because a lot of people, myself included, aren't fans of the battle of the bands format, but we kind of thought, well, we know why we're doing it, and we thought, fuck it doesn't matter what people think of it, we're doing it for the right reasons, because, I can only talk personally about my stage, but I had, for the last sort of 3 or 4 spots, I must have had 25, 30 bands that I really struggled to decide on which ones to put on, because there's such an amazing, at that level, that emerging level, there's such an amazing choice of UK bands. It's really hard to decide. So when it came to sort of going through the applications and doing a battle of the bands to fill in the last spots, what we've basically got is just someone else making the hard decision for us. So rather than me having to commit to putting one band in and leaving another 6 or 7 out, it's like, we'll put it to the public vote. We know that sometimes it's going to be mates of the bands that will vote. We know sometimes it'll be people who are being honest about it. And the bare fact is, we need the PR, they need the PR, and everyone benefits from it. You could be cynical about it, as I have been over the years, but actually, if everyone gets to see the festival, everyone gets to see these bands' videos and talk about it, then it can't be all that bad. And ultimately, we're a young festival. We need to help too. So doing this is going to fill the final remaining spots and end with a little showcase where we get all these great finalists together on stage, which will be amazing because the quality is so good. So that will be the final stages to securing the last spots. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. This isn't something I thought of, but you'd be obviously that first year. There was a certain amount of negative press to come out of that, which I've had Jenny Duncan, who does the marketing for Stone Deaf, was on part one, and and they had a great festival off without a hitch. Beautiful weather, everyone saying how great it went and all the rest of it. And you guys had the opposite of that. You had fucking horrendous weather, biblical rain.
It was awful. Yeah, I mean, we can't hide it. I mean, you try and spin things positively, but it kind of did itself. There were a number of elements. You know me, I'm always honest, but we had a couple of people involved in the festival who, it turned out, absolutely didn't have the best interests at heart. Now, one thing I know, and this is the absolute truth about Gary, is he's only put this festival on because he loves what he's doing. He's got no idea how to benefit, personally or financially from this sort of thing. It just doesn't even enter his mind. So everyone he had involved in that first year, it was friends, people he thought had the same passion and a shared attitude towards it. And he built the team, a very small team, too small a team. He built it out of friends and people he thought he could trust. And he was let down really badly. I think when the colossal rains came in to that event and started causing problems, and they did expose, a few weaknesses in our organisation, things we hadn't planned as well as we could. I think some people basically, just buckled down and did the work, and some people decided self-preservation was the option. And there were a few people who basically pulled back. If there were closing stages, they wanted to make sure their bands were the ones who were getting the spots. They didn't care about other people's. They weren't looking at the overall picture of the festival,
Yeah.
For example, the bands that were paid the most, who had come the furthest, should be prioritised because of the festival, because of Gary's money, his investment in it. Whereas they would be fighting to sneak on perhaps, a band in this tiny little stage because it was their mates, when actually, we should have been looking at the bigger picture. So what we had is basically people who didn't understand festivals. So they've been putting on gigs and doing so very well, versus someone who, without experience, at least had the bigger picture in mind, and there was a conflict of interest. So in that first year, the rain exposed a lot. It caused a lot of problems of its own as well, but there were divisions. And off the back of that, there were some people who were basically looking after their friends, and it's all done and dusted now, but there was a lot of negativity put out trying to cover people's backs. Now, all we did on the other side of the fence was try to basically protect the festival. We weren't looking at blaming anyone. We were quite open about the fact that we didn't get everything right, and the rain exposed that. But we tried to look after all the bands. We made sure the fans were as well looked after, as many of the bands were looked after as they could be, and that's all we cared about. So to have a few other people, trying to spread negativity about it was awkward. But luckily, we'd done enough of a good job of the positive part and actually caring about people that the positive aspects shone through. And even though, it was a colossal washout, I mean, I've never seen anything like it, genuinely never seen anything like it. People loved it. They loved the fact that they had to handle that adversity, and most of the people there saw it as a positive. So when we came back next year, we pretty much kept everybody who had come the first year. And those people had sort of passed on the fun and explained to people what we tried to do. We combined that with, promises that we'd learned from a few mistakes. We were going to do a lot better. And we promised to improve the weather, which kind of bit us on the arse again, because it was the hottest day of the year and everyone fried. Yeah. But, we genuinely do things for the right reason. So if there was any negativity, it was because things didn't work out. There was nothing we did that was wrong. You know, we never fucked anyone over. We never, if there were any suspicions of things we hadn't done, that was through omission, and we always sort it out. And Gary's a good man like that. He's a very honest man. So it was quite difficult to hear people he considered friends basically talking shit about him when, you know, he's not like that. So for me, as someone who, I'm not a fan of organising the festival, but for me, it made me decide I need to stay by his side. I need to come back next year and sort of back him up again and offer anything I can to make sure it works. And yeah, last year it was a lot better.
Oh, well, I couldn't help but feel a little bit jealous when I saw that, when I saw you had 3 days of absolute baking heat, including the hottest day of the year, when the previous year we'd been like huddled up and get just like, yeah. But anyway,
it was almost worse. It was almost worse because you look at some of the photos, even though, you know, some of the great bands were, you look at some of the photos and there's no one in front of the stage because they all had to hide underneath the eaves of tents and in the trees just to avoid how blisteringly hot it was, because these people would have killed themselves if they just stood out in it. So it was insane. So yeah, all we can hope for next year is some kind of average weather. You know, that would be perfect. Well, not many festivals can say that, or they're hoping for average, but yeah.
Well, to be fair, I mean, at least you can get away from the rain, but you can't get away from heat.
No, well, you can, but then you're away from the festival, because it's obviously it's an amazing sight. I mean, I don't know how much you saw with the weather the year you were there, but it's probably one of the nicest sights in the country for a festival, because it's just a beautiful farm.
Yeah.
And there is a forest there, and there are trees you can go and escape to, but yeah, it's not really, that's a bit too far away from the stage to hear the music. So yeah, middle ground would be great next year.
Ever so slightly. So when you're and you know, when you're looking at booking bands, you put the second stage together. Is it all bands you know? Is it all, or like, oh, you know, and I'd like to get them on, like to give them a break, or is there also kind of like, you know, a certain amount of dealing with agents? So I mean, you sort your stage out, and then you're helping Gary as well. So I'd imagine you've got almost like the two completely different experiences there. You've got dealing with sort of some people you know and people you trust, and then there's other times where it's into the lion's den. You know, we'd like so and so. Really, make us an offer.
Yeah, it is. It's absolutely two sides to well, I'd say coin, but the sword is more of it. With my stage, it's all people I know. The headline spots are slightly different. Sometimes it's bands I know, sometimes not. But all the rest of it, basically through my clients, through the way I follow music generally, throughout the year, I stay very, very much on the pulse, for want of a less cliched phrase, of exactly what's going on, because other people recommend stuff to me constantly. It's very rare I miss anything that's good, just because people talk about it. The benefit of social media, as much as it's got its downsides, is musically, you know, I see everything that's going on. If someone likes something, it tells you. So I just chase things down. I always follow new bands. I always check out data and see how well people are doing, how many Spotify listens they get, you know, the things that can't lie. And I follow stuff. And generally, because I've got broad taste, I like all the stuff. So I can very easily book, I would say, 80% of my 3 days stage, well, with a piece of paper in half an hour. I've just got to then drop the emails out to who's available. Luckily, most people come back with a yes. With the opening spots, yeah, there is an element of doing favours, but it's, as much as, you know, I'm not in a position to say who's good and bad, but from my point of view, it's who I feel deserves an opportunity. So if there's a young band who I think really are talented but aren't getting that many opportunities, then I'll bring them down, you know. And if you want to come and open a stage for them, it's you know, it's a really good thing to come and get that experience. For us, the truth of the matter is, I don't like booking opening bands, because you know that's always going to be the one where you've got to get people to literally come out of their tents and start watching. So there is that risk of there being, you know, a minimal audience. So it's a fine balance when booking bands. But, you know, I want to make sure that bands who deserve it get an opportunity as well. I avoid oversaturation. So if there's a great band and you want it and they play everywhere, okay, you're probably going to go for it if it helps out a bit, kudos. But generally speaking, if a band, even if they're close friends, are on another 5 festivals, then I'll avoid them. which can be a bit awkward because they're mates and they're dropping the hints, and you think, yeah, you're good enough, and I love you guys, you're brilliant, but the fact is you play in too many other events, so it's kind of all that kind of decision making. But it kind of takes care of itself, and then it comes to the headliners. Gary gives me a budget I've got to work within, and generally I'll go to bands I know first, because I don't like dealing with agents if I can help it. And you get the sort of gauge of whether they're interested, and then go to the agents if need be. But it's not too difficult on my stage. I've got the easy job. I think when it comes to Gary's, the bigger bands, it's much more tricky because he's got to deal with the agents. So we kind of get involved together. He's the one who's the face of the festival with agents, but he always shares what they've said and what they've come back with. And they're cunts, basically. It's what it boils down to. Nearly all agents are absolute abhorrent bastards, and it's just a fact. I mean, that's not my opinion. It's earned. There are a few who are diamonds, and you and I know one or two that we share interest with who are great people, and they do a difficult job, but they do it with integrity. And the rest, honestly, they are just the most abhorrent people I've ever had to work with. You're forced into working with these people. They hold all the cards when you're a small festival, and you've just got nothing you can do. You're just at their mercy, and they seem to love it. It's probably the least enjoyable part of anything to do with music, is having to deal with people who aren't working because they care. They are literally just in it for their cut of the money, and that's it. If you're not the biggest festival, if you're not invested in other areas that they might need you for, then you've got absolutely no chance. Even making huge offers of money won't sway them a lot of the time. They'll do exactly what they wish, and they will please themselves, and they'll keep you hanging as long as possible.
Yeah, they'll just keep kicking the can down the road, and trying to keep you hanging on, and they'll use you if they need a payday on that date.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they'll come to you, and we'll Gary and I will see an email come in, and our eyes will light up, thinking, Jesus, that's great, they know us. But then, you learn to realise very quickly that same email has gone to Bloodstock and Download and all the European festivals and pretty much everyone else who will listen. And they'll ask you how much you can pay, and you'll make an offer. They'll probably ask you for more than they ask for the bigger festivals. And they'll keep you dangling until they've got an answer from those festivals. And only then, only when they've been turned down, will they talk to you. And even then, sometimes they don't. It's quite sort of soul destroying in some ways. But as the best advice I've been given by others who do the same is you've just got to toughen up and deal with it. But I think for someone like me, I don't really want to become tough to that, because I think the moment I become tough to it, I'm kind of playing the same game. I want to be offended by someone's lack of passion, you know what I mean? I think I'd rather continue to book bands for a friend's festival and not enjoy it than be better at it and be an arsehole. Do you know what I mean? I think for me, it's more important just to not be like those people. I think it just propagates the problem.
Yeah. And I thought you had a really impressive set of headliners last year as well.
Yeah, it all clicked into place. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Gary takes a lot of credit for that. He thinks sort of left the field. I know the UK scene very well, the emerging scene better than he does, but he's got broader tastes, and occasionally he'll present this wild card, and I'm like, well, I don't know, and I kind of look into it and think, no, actually, this would be pretty clever, yeah. And he does pull some out of the bag, and in many ways, his lack of experience, and he won't mind me saying this, his lack of experience of dealing with people can work as well, Because what we've both decided is we don't want to book those bands who are dickheads or don't want to play. We want the bands who understand that we're a small growing festival, understand that we're passionate, and if they play for us, they might not play to the biggest crowds, but they'll play to a crowd of people who care about the festival they're at, who all know each other, who are all absolutely into it. And those are the people we want to work with. So Gary's approach of being, he's not pushy at all, and friendly and almost docile in some ways, intentionally docile with people. I think it helps pull out the good guys, so those few good agents that we've talked about, I think Gary's managed to find them, and they seem to respect the way Gary works. Probably refreshed that they're not dealing with, hard-nosed arseholes as well. So sometimes it works, sometimes it clicks in place, and a lot of time behind the scenes it's very frustrating, but so far we've managed to we've managed to get a good balance and make things work. So hopefully we can keep that formula going.
Well, let's hope so. I hope so. And I'm trying to think. I know Therapy headlined one night, and who were the other two headliners? It's really annoying me.
We had Evil Scarecrow on the Friday, who we'd had returning because they did an amazing job for us the year before, even if we messed around a bit, having to change stages, as you're familiar with. But they did a great job for us, and they're good friends of ours. So they came back. I'm just trying to rack my brain and think who we had now.
We're both scratching our heads, aren't we?
I'm having to visually look at the poster in my mind to see who we've got. Idiot. It was Soil. That was the other one.
Oh, of course.
Which was, another one of my clients. So that was just kind of a nice coincidence in that I'd been working with them, so I knew them anyway, and Gary had suggested them, and it kind of just clicked together. I thought, these are really good guys, so they'd be worth trying to talk to. And they turned out they were the right band because, again, it wasn't the biggest crowd, it wasn't the sort of crowd they necessarily be used to, but they absolutely, whipped them up and got involved and got a bit pissed with them and jumped in the crowd and made it everything it could be. So they were a fantastic band to have. Really, really good guys. Very good live
cool,
as well.
Man. That's cool. So, I mean, are you gonna have this Very Metal Art second stage? 5-10 years down the line, and you're gonna have Megadeth playing on it in 10 years time. What's your kind of plan?
I don't really know. The truth is I was getting a bit flaky with Gary for this year because I find it so stressful because of all the things I've talked about not liking to be someone who has to go through conflict to book bands, and I don't like worrying about how many people are going to turn up or worrying that things are going to go wrong. I'm not made out for events. I've got enough skills and common sense to be able to make a decent job of what I do, but I don't particularly enjoy it. It's more important to me that I'm helping out my friend than taking anything out of it. And whilst I'm sure there's probably benefits in me having my name there, for me it is just about trying to help Gary sort of realise his dream. He's put so much financially and physically into it that it just feels right that one of my oldest friends gets that help from people. So I shall probably stand by his side as long as he needs me, but I shall probably wobble a bit a few times, as he's already experienced, and nearly back out and get stressed. But probably I think as long as he's got something that's growing and doing what he wanted to do, and we're doing what the fans want, then I'll stay with him. Although that said, if he could get a big sponsor to come in and take the stage, then that'd be great as well, because obviously, the more that would help him grow, the better it would be.
Yeah, and it strikes me that it's not your favourite thing to do.
No, not at all. I mean, I genuinely don't like it. I mean, I started off in music through doing a small charity tour called Headbangers Balls, which I think we've spoken about before anyway.
Yeah.
But for the majority who probably still don't know who I am, that's how I got into music. I put the band I managed at the centre of a cancer awareness tour because the singer of the band had survived cancer. We were going to do a little charity gig, and I just thought, let's see what we can do, and ended up doing 2 years of 12 dates each year. And it was a really great thing. It was a really positive thing. We had so much support, some amazing gigs. Everything went perfectly. But I really didn't enjoy it. I found the stress and the anxiety and the worry of things going wrong almost overwhelming. And I still get that experience. Anything to do with live events, I do get an overwhelming sense of stress leading up to it, to the point where it does nearly stop me doing things. But it's rewarding enough in different ways that I sort of fight through. But no, I don't enjoy it in any sense of the word. I'm satisfied by other people's enjoyment. But from a personal point of view, I genuinely get nothing out of it at all. As sad as that sounds.
Well, no, not really. I mean, we can't all, and I'm sure there'll be people listening to this who'll be thinking like, well, that's, you're standing by your mate, and that's really cool, I guess it's there is a certain amount of it gets your company out there, and you're sponsoring the second stage, if you like, But no, I mean, I think it's admirable that despite the fact it's not something that you particularly enjoy, that, you know, you're prepared to get involved and get your hands dirty to help a mate out, which, you know, I think that's to be admired, Andy.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are advantages to publicity for me, but like I say, I wouldn't mind if it wasn't my name on the stage. I'd still do the same thing. But it's also quite difficult for me to tell because I'm in a privileged position where my work is always busy. I'm always booked, several months in advance. So it's actually quite difficult to tell whether anything I do publicity-wise is positive or negative because I'm still quite busy. So whilst that continues, maybe it's because I'm doing things like having my name on Amplified. I don't know, but it could just be because, I know a lot of bands and they appreciate my work. So it's quite difficult to tell what I'm getting in reciprocation, but I'm sure there are definite benefits from it because there's so much positivity around Amplified and what Gary's built that it's going to reflect on me too if we continue to put good bands on that people like to listen to.
Oh, it's brand awareness, love. Brand awareness.
Well, I think anyone who knows me gets that ram down their throat anyway, so I'm not sure there's any room for any more.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think I just think it's cool. I think the fact that you work with so many bands that there is an opportunity to help some of them out as well, and maybe play a festival and reach some more people. And I told Gary this, and I'll tell you this: I still haven't played a fucking outdoor stage at a festival. And I was going to get my first fucking talk about how wonderful the bar was and all that. That is out the window. I still haven't because the bastard got rained off. I was on that stage the 2 days before. Drove up there with all our merch 2 days before the gig. And it was quite nice.
It's a long-term plan for us to bring you back, mate. That's what it is. We're waiting for this album.
I'd say it was
tease you back.
2 days before the gig, it was quite a nice day. Pete and I were actually on the stage. And I was stood there. I was thinking, this is going to be great.
Well, it's reverse logic, H. Because it's like when you look at Bloodstock, the natural progression, New Blood through to Sophie stage through to main stage. But what we've done is we've set the level so low by actually taking away all stages and making you play in a wet corner of a tent. Yeah. That means whatever we offer in the future is going to sound attractive, hopefully.
Well,
we'll see whether that works.
Yes. I've got your answer right here for you, but unfortunately you can't see it. So have you got any exciting projects in the works at the moment?
I've got a few, I don't know what I'm allowed to say or not. I'm working. I've got a project I've just finished for a band who are one of my favourites at the moment, which is Bloodstock, German thrash band. If anyone knows them, so I've just finished doing a lyric video for their latest, their first single off their upcoming new album, which is great. I've got a couple of other biggies coming up, but I don't think I can mention it, unfortunately. Because people don't know that their music's coming out, so I'll probably drop them in it with that.
Well, you can.
Yeah, I've got some good stuff.
You can mention one.
Well, but what, yours?
Yes, you fucking stupid bastard. Of course, ours.
Are we talking that level? Are we? I can't remember what we've talked about in the past or not.
Yeah. Hang on, I'll just get the back of the fag packet out.
That is how we work. That genuinely is. Well, no, I can't wait to do that. Yeah, so obviously we've been bashing ideas around left, right, and centre, and I'm in the middle of developing some stuff for the new Acid Rain album.
I know, yeah, that was cool the other day where we were like knocking those messages about, and it was just like, you'd have an idea, and then I'd add to it, and then you'd add to that, and it was just like they were just, and we just kept going, yes. And that's really
it's
cool.
All going back to the question you asked me via your Patreon Q&A about me, how I work, and do I sort of go offline and analog and design in different ways, or is it straight to digital? I mean, whilst I didn't sort of do any sketches with you, I think you're the only client I work with in that kind of way, in that we just have lots of ideas, we discuss it, and then we wait, and then we both go away absolutely certain we've nailed it, and then we change our minds, and then come back and have new ideas and get new inspirations, and it's really refreshing to work in that way, with one or two people where you could do something slightly different. And the fact that there is a little bit of time, although obviously we we still work to deadlines. There's a bit more flexibility in getting the best solution rather than just nailing it now. And it's a nice, it's a really creative way of doing things, which I really enjoy. It's not just about nailing a polished execution. It's about making sure that it gets under the skin of what the music's about, because you're extremely passionate about what you do. And I've been lucky enough to be part of the process, and that I'm hearing the early mixes and the demos, and we've had a beer and talked about what you're writing and why and what your experiences are when you're writing it. And all of that goes into informing how I approach it. It has a really positive pressure to what I do, because I know each time I find out something more, I've got to up my game a bit. And I know I've got to nail it, and I'm kind of motivated by that. So it's got an exciting way of working, and it's going to be great, hopefully.
Well, yeah, hopefully. Well, no, it is. I mean, we've had the luxury this time because it's kind of like, not being up against a deadline, and whereas, obviously most things that, most jobs that you get, it's like, right, we'd like you to do this, yes, and we need it then, and that is it. Whereas we have been able to kind of have many conversations and just knock ideas about and think we've nailed it, and then we haven't. And yeah, I mean, I'm all about the creativity, bro. It takes as long as it takes, and that's certainly the way the rest of the albums go.
You've got a very visual way of thinking in terms of visually in practical senses in the way I work. You can see how you want things to look as well, whereas a lot of people might only be able to do it in terms of vernacular, and I have to translate words into images, and then hopefully that's the right thing. I think you go through the same process as I do in terms of the way you think things. You have the same way of sort of consuming imagery around you and influence, and then when we come to discuss it, the same way that we get on when we chat is that we've both got very different ways of approaching things. So we kind of come together from different perspectives, but always meet in the same place. So I think it informs the final product in a very unique way. I think it's a properly collaborative process, which I don't really get with many clients, partly because of the amount of time I have to work with them.
No, and I agree with that, and I enjoy I enjoy the process. I really do. And when you say that we both come from different angles but end up in the same place, that would be the pub.
Yeah. This part of the country.
Yeah.
You come from England, I come from Wales back.
That's it. It's either a pub in London. Well, not anymore since you moved away, you bastard.
So I left you. Failed, yeah.
Yes, since you walked out on me, left me holding the nothing. I took great pleasure in posting those pictures on your Facebook when you first moved into your new house, and you posted the picture of the family all at the new house, and everyone posting going, "Oh, it's brilliant! I was so pleased for you," and just posting pictures of me stood outside your old house looking miserable.
Except that you stood at my next door neighbour's house.
Yes.
That's the funniest part.
Yeah.
I absolutely creased at that. Brilliant. You could just see like 6 inches of my house in the corner of the photo. But yeah, still works.
and
you never actually came in. You kind of we kissed and said goodbye outside, didn't we, every night?
Absolutely. And also the fact that I remember I posted something. I can't remember what it was. But somebody took it seriously as well and thought, obviously, I'd put something sort of negative or whatever, and they posted a reply being really positive, like, I
love it when that happens and you just leave it. Just knowingly ignore it.
Yeah. Oh, dear. That was good. Well, look, I really appreciate you coming on. I really do.
Always a pleasure.
Talking through festivals and art and all the rest of it, and all of the other many parts of your multifaceted, very metal arts empire.
It's nice that someone wants to listen, I should tell you. Well, I've only got my cat to talk to normally, And she's supposed to feign interest, but she just wants the food.
Well, I just want the album cover, to be honest.
And I just want the publicity.
Yeah. Well, we're all going to get what we want, then, aren't we? It's all happy at the end of the day. Well, look, please do wish your lovely lady a happy Christmas, and
I shall do.
And say hello to the kids from Uncle Howard, which just sounds weird given they've only met me once. I think we had a few beers in the beer garden, didn't we? And you brought the kids.
They always remember you though. They do remember you. Made an impression.
Oh really? Oh shit! What did I do?
Well, I've shown them videos. It's not many of my friends I get to show videos of them jumping off things as well. So that always helps with the 7 and a 9-year-old.
Oh, actually, yeah, because I'm starting to remember our session in the beer garden. Not that it was a session, because obviously you had your kids with you, but yeah, right, okay. I've taken up enough of your time. Thanks a lot, Andy. I really appreciate it, mate.
Absolute pleasure, mate.
Have a good one.
Cheers.
And that is myself and Andy having our chat about festivals. And there you go. It's all happening. We are back. Back to discuss absolutely anything. I'll tell you what I'm going to tell you, right? Okay? I'll be honest with you. I've already done this podcast once. Yep. Did the whole thing. And before I went to export it, I unplugged my USB-powered mic and blue screen of death to my fucking laptop and lost the whole thing. Normally, it does save them and it recovers them, but not this one. So I've had to sit here and do the whole fucking thing again. And there is nothing more depressing than doing an entire job that you've already done once. Is there now? So there you go. Whatever you're doing, it could be worse than that, but yeah, absolute fucking pain in the arse. But anyway, look, it's been a great year. Really enjoyed doing this. Lots of things coming up next year. I am looking at bringing another podcast out as well. It will be another one in the Talking Bollocks suite of podcasts. It will involve musicians, comedians, actors, all sorts of different people. It's just going to be something a little bit different. I hope you like it. It should be a good laugh. More about that, I'll let you will hear it here before anyone else. But unless of course you're a Patreon subscriber, in which case you'll hear it before everyone else hears this and before they hear that. But there you go. Anyway, look, it's been a great year. This is another just short of 5 hours of Christmas content for you fuckers. I hope you appreciate it. It's been really good fun. Done all sorts this year, eh? Been up to Derby with Godless for. And that reminds me, fucking hell, get your asses along if you haven't already got your tickets. Get your tickets to the live podcast coming your way in fucking January. Come on, get on the Talking Bollocks social medias, get the Etc. Theatre and find out where and go. Come on now, people. So anyway, it's been an absolute pleasure. What do you do? Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, thanks for your support this year. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to next year and getting stuck in and doing some more of these for you. But until then, happy Christmas, Hanukkah, Winter Festival, or happy nothing. You don't celebrate Christmas. Fine. That's absolutely fine. I'm cool with that. So's everyone else. This, after all, is a safe space to listen to your podcasts. And remember, when you go to a live gig, shout bollocks. And if you hear somebody shout bollocks back. And that way, you know you've got some bollockers in the building. See you all. Well, I won't see you all next month. Speak to you all next month.